Dr. Murillo. The purpose of the public hearing is basically a compliance requirement. The Code of Iowa requires that a formal budget be amended if actual expenditures will exceed of functional components. And what that means is that we group our expenditures by function, instructional, support, business office, et cetera. And we filed this a year ago in April. And now what we're looking at is to do a budget amendment based upon our estimate at that time. It's interesting that even though the budget in total would not exceed the original budget, if any of these functional line items change and exceed what they originally were passed for, we have to do this budget amendment. Hence, that's why I say it's a compliance document. Even if, when we do this tonight, even if I'm off $1, we will still get a compliance finding from our auditors, so I did my best. The budget encompasses all funds, just not the general fund. And as I said, failure to do this will actually result in an audit finding, which we had last year. The proposed budget amendment will have no impact on property taxes or funding or anything like that. The change in revenues is not required for the budget amendment, so they make us change the expenditures, but we don't have to change the revenue side. And the amendment is an estimate of what we think 6/30/18 is going to look like. Actual results will vary. I apologize, that's a little small up there. So there's two line items that we're looking at increasing. One is total support services, and the other one is the total other expenditures. Total support services are basically the student transportation and support costs. We're running a little heavier in those areas. So what we did is we're asking for a budget amendment to increase that about $470,000. The other expenditures, going from about 10.2 million to about 28 million, that all has to do with the bond refinancing that we did on the 2010A and the 2012 bonds. But when we paid off those bonds, that's the expenditure that we are showing. And I mentioned just a moment ago that we don't show the revenue side. You'll see the offset on the revenue side. We had a huge increase in revenue in the debt service fund. So the offset is up there. So we also had a few other construction projects that happened in the year, but most of that increase in the total other expenditures is the bond refinancing. And that is the end of my presentation. I open it for discussion.
Any questions from the board?
So you had mentioned increased student services for busing. What, can you explain?
So
why
we
that
had
happened?
student activity buses,
Okay.
and our cost did go up a little bit since last year on the regular routes. So that's some of it. It's not nearly all of it.
I thought we had restructured kind of a bus schedule at one point to save money.
We did, but when you have the student activities, they bill us separately for those.
Okay.
And we had an increase in student activity buses and also some shuttle buses that we did this year.
Of $500,000?
No, that's some of that increase. The rest of it is other support services around the district. For instance, student support services, areas, for instance, in Dr. Vorthman's area as well. Maybe we bought some new supplies for students. All that encompassed about $400,000. Now, if you look at our instructional side, our instructional is somewhat below, several $1 million below what we had anticipated it was going to be. So we pushed that one up a little bit heavier and probably was a little bit lighter on the student support side.
Points? Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make any comments about this budget amendment? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for your attendance, and I am closing the public hearing session. I am now opening the public hearing of the Council Board of Directors for the Abraham Lincoln parking lot renovation. Let the record show that all board members are present, and the Community School District is holding a public hearing regarding two parts of this planned renovation. And Ms. Pettit.
Ready? All right. thank you for the introduction. Good evening, board. Can you guys hear me all right? Okay. This might feel like deja vu since we just presented this at our last board meeting, except for maybe Mr. Grove. So bear with us. We'll try to go through this quickly. And let's do a recap on our public hearing, 18-010, Abraham Lincoln Student Parking Lot Replacement Project. As a quick recap, the cost estimate, this is a three-phased project over 3 summers, and we're looking at phase 1 right now. It's about a $387,000 project. If all goes well, we'll look at phase 2 over the winter. We'll probably be bringing that back to you. That's about a $450,000 project. And then the last phase, which would be 3 summers from now, would be about a $500,000 project. And you're probably asking, why is it going up each phase? That does include our engineering fees as well as some cost increases if the contractors are seeing product increases as well. We did receive our bids yesterday. We had 2 contractors provide proposals, and the range for those were $389,000 to $397,000. Yes, it was close, very close. So recap of our project schedule. We did receive our bids yesterday. We're coming to you for board approval this evening. If all goes well and it's approved, we'll look at starting the project middle of June, and we would complete the project at the middle of August, so right before school starts. Of course, that's pending weather. We had a lot of rain this last week, so we're hoping we're getting it out of our system. Okay, with that being said, we're bringing a recommendation to award the project to Bluffs Paving and Utility Company of Crescent, Iowa, in the amount of $389,000, $267.87. This bid actually is our base bid, and we're looking at also adding the alternate number 2, which would address any kind of poor soil conditions, because sometimes when we're doing parking lot projects, we run into that in the past. Are there any questions? You have Jared here too, so if we have any.
Jared, thanks for coming
technical
back the second meeting. Any questions from the board or new questions on this?
Just Stacy,
Renovation?
can you summarize why we're doing this?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The parking lot was built during our construction project over the 2008, 9, 10, 11 school year. And that parking lot took a lot of abuse during the construction of AL. We've also had some water intrusion issues that Jared can kind of get into the technical portion of it if you guys are interested in it, but we're having a lot of problems with water getting under the pavement. It's coming up through the joints. It's really eroding all of our joints across the parking lot. And then of course, salt, winter weather is it's just hard on all of our concrete. And for Mr. Grove, we are looking at, what did you call it? The joint sealants?
Yeah, we're actually going to be treating the joints with a chemical impedant to stop the salt degradation of the joints. It's showed pretty good success around town elsewhere on holding up the concrete. The failure tends to start at the joints.
We're also looking at catching some of the water that's getting underneath all of the parking lot too.
We'll try to maximize as many spaces as we can.
Yes, yes. We have a couple ideas about that.
Good.
I guess the question I'd have is, as a taxpayer, I feel like we put a lot of money in that parking lot and different renovations of that parking area. What do we feel was just the issue there, and how are we going to address so we don't have those same kind of unreliability of this
Yep.
structure, I guess?
Yep, basically I talked about this briefly at the last board meeting. We weren't involved in the original design or construction of it, so we did some subsurface investigation. It would appear that while the soils are solid underneath, they're so cohesive that they're not allowing any water to pass through them, and they're just simply holding the water. There does appear to be a good amount of groundwater or surface runoff getting underneath the slab, saturating the subgrade, and then squeezing back out through the slab over time. That is sustainable for a while. in summer months. However, if that happens during the freeze-thaw cycle, that saturation of the subgrade does lead to a joint separation. Once the joints start to open up, it allows for more water to get in, and in the wintertime, that's also bringing with it the calcium from the salting of the parking lots. Those three items are basically teaming up to really shorten the life of that parking lot. So as we talked about last time, we're going to actually put in our 6-inch granular base underneath the parking lot. That way any water that does get underneath is going to get captured by a longitudinal subdrain system that we're putting in. And we're putting in additional surface drainage controls in the form of trench drain at the end of this phase and the end of phase 2 to shorten the runs that the stormwater is taking across the slab and minimize the locations where it can get underneath the slab and damage the subgrade further.
Sir? Any other questions from the board? Yes, sir.
This company appears to be new for the district to utilize this company, or is it,
I cannot think of the last project they might have done for you guys. However, I don't think they have. They have done many projects for the city of Council Bluffs. They do a lot of projects. They've been around a long time.
it's just a new name for us
Yep.
that I hadn't,
They have bid your projects in the past.
okay.
Yeah.
Turn them on now. All right. Okay, thank you very much. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to make any comments about the renovation of the Abraham Lincoln parking areas, please come forward. All right. Thank you very much for your attendance during this public hearing. I'm closing the public hearing session. And I am now opening the regular business meeting of the Council Bluffs Community Schools for May 22nd. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Dr. Ogres?
Present.
Mr. Minshaw? Present. Mr. McGlade?
Present.
Mr. Kazire?
Present.
Mr. LaFurla?
Present.
Mr. Grove? Present. Mr. Arthur?
Present. Please join me for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Now I need approval of our agenda. Is there a motion?
Move approval of our agenda.
Is there a second, Jill?
Second.
Excellent. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And the agenda is approved. Now we have approval of minutes from workshop meeting of May 8th. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the minutes of the workshop meeting of May 8th, 2018.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or changes? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and the minutes are carried. Now we come to the public participation portion of the meeting. If anyone would like to come up and address the board on any issue on the agenda, or any agenda item that would concern the board, please do so now. All righty, thank you all. Now we move to the superintendent's report and student recognition and employee recognition. Dr. Murillo.
This is a great, great time of the year and pretty excited. I'd like to invite Ms. Ostrowski to the mic. She will lead us through our student recognition. We will do first, and then we will do the employee recognition second. Isn't this pretty exciting to see all the parents and students here tonight? As parents, we want to thank you. Thank you for allowing us to educate your students, and we want to thank you for coming tonight in support. Ms. Ostrowski, the mic is yours.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
These students are here after a culmination of hard work throughout the years in a lot of cases, and we're very pleased to introduce you to them tonight and celebrate their success. The first group of students is a large group of students who have achieved the highest category of platinum level on the National Career Readiness Certificate test. This is a big deal. We have students, of course, who achieve at the bronze and silver and gold levels as well. The NCRC, that National Career Readiness Certificate, is accepted by more than 10,000 employers nationwide as a reliable way to verify individuals' work skills. So the assessments are in the areas of applied mathematics, reading for information, and locating information. This achievement indicates that these 22 Council Bluffs students have the foundational workplace readiness skills for 99% of the occupations listed in the ACT Work Keys database. So we're here to introduce you them tonight and be impressed by their success. We are so proud of them. We are presenting the Student Star Award to them, which is our district's honor for students in their achievement. Okay. All right. And as I call your name, please come forward and stay up here. We're going to take a group picture. And parents, feel free to take a picture as well. Larissa Brandt. As she's coming forward, Jaden Doffner. received the Country Schoolhouse Award. Congratulations. And finally, Lucas Fitch, would you join Dr. Murillo up front to be recognized? All right. So Lucas earned the Iowa History Award for his individual junior website entitled Bringing Home the Bacon, the Wrath Packing House Strike of 1948. Congratulations to these students. And Mrs. Masker, when is the national competition? Okay. Oh, raising money to go to nationals June 2nd? Car wash at Broadway Methodist Church. Shameless plug. Okay. We have two more categories tonight. This one is our 2018 State of Iowa Scholars. 4 members of the district's class of 2018 were honored by Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds as part of the 2018 Governor's Scholar Recognition Program. The program recognizes students for consistent academic excellence during their high school careers. First of all, from Abraham Lincoln High School, we've met her already tonight, Claire Jones. And another NCRC Platinum level recipient, Taylor Barr. From Thomas Jefferson, Anna Rodriguez. Come back up. And Jenna Dietrich. Okay, all right. Would each of you proudly say what you're going to be doing next year? Wow, congratulations, ladies. And I'll also mention that Claire was one of 25 students nationwide honored as the U.S. Army Football Hall of Fame Award of Excellence winner. So we are very proud of Claire and all of these young people here. Okay, robotics. How excited are we to talk about robotics again this year? We have students from both Thomas Jefferson and Wilson Middle Schools, and they have competed beyond the local area, and we wanted to celebrate their accomplishments. First of all, from Thomas Jefferson, the following students were division finalists at the U.S. Open Robotics Championship, and I'll call each of them up by name. Come on up. Aldo Avalos. Trenton Jones. Caleb Fitch. Chase Kolsky. Brandon Witzel. And Jordan Musgrave. You guys want to stay up here and we'll do the Wilson too? Would that be all right? Okay. All right. The following students from Wilson Middle School earned honors as well as U.S. Open Robotics Championship qualifiers and VEX World Robotics Championship qualifiers. They also earned the Sportsmanship Award at the U.S. Open. Chloe Kolsky. Nicholas Berg. Grace Strong. Kyler Myers. And the next two students also qualified for the U.S. Open and VEX World Robotic Championship competitions, and they received the Sportsmanship Award at Worlds. We love that Sportsmanship Award, don't we? That's the best one. Alyssa Arthur. And Hannah Kuhnholt. And thank you to the parent sponsors who really, would you students agree, make it happen by putting you to work and making you do what you need to do to be successful. Okay, thanks for representing our school district and our community. And again, parents, don't be shy. You could tell the high schoolers, can't you? Well, what did that mean?
Not really.
So is robotics something you'll continue to do throughout the summer? Yeah, oh yeah, I think it's a year-round thing, isn't it? Good, well, enjoy. I know. Can we show them? Yes. Okay. President Arthur, if I could proceed with the employee recognition part. Come up and help shake hands would be awesome. Okay. Each year, we take the opportunity to recognize an individual in each of our categories of employees so that they can represent all of the amazing work that happens in our school district throughout the year. And we've got Vanna White here showing off the award. The first presentation we would like to make tonight is to our support staff member of the year, and that is Miss Debbie Alexander from Hoover Elementary School. Before I read just a little bit about her, and there's no tissues, so don't, her husband Roger, her son Jacob and wife Kim, son Joshua and wife Kristen, daughter Jenny and husband Trevor, grandchildren Damon, Davis, Jocelyn, and Brady. You brought your whole fan club, as you should, and a fan club from Hoover Elementary, I might add. Okay. Debbie Alexander has so many tangible and intangible qualities that make her stand out above others for living the mission. She knows the functions of her position extremely well and is an excellent ambassador as the face and voice of Hoover. She is a master at building relationships with families, so she not only adds a personal touch, but becomes aware of needs and finds support for families and students in crisis. When doing daily attendance, she has the perfect balance between thoughtfully inquiring about absent students and asking the right questions that help us determine what the root cause of the absence might be. Debbie is often the go-to person when a student needs encouragement, and we prescribe some, quote, Miss Debbie time. That helps them makes them feel special and helpful, or call upon her to ease student fears. Debbie also has an exceptional understanding of the operations of the building and safety protocols, and frequently has great suggestions for improving both. With the recent discussion and focus on school safety, it's even more evident that Debbie goes above and beyond to know all our kids and build relationships with families. Debbie is diligent with the front door, updating records and finding ways to improve our practices. She holds students accountable and discusses the importance of the Hoover Way. This helps maintain high expectations. Debbie's talents go beyond the front desk, as she's also the go-to backup for the health office. She handles all student health needs thoroughly and accurately and does so with a calm and caring approach. Although Debbie takes her responsibilities very seriously and has an exemplary work ethic, she is fun-loving and connects with students and staff and can be seen dressing up on crazy days. And she brings joy to all who know her. Congratulations. Oh, I love it. Oh. I love it. Oh, I love that. Shame on you, Alexis. Where are you?
Back there, that little guy right there with that big smile.
You want him in the picture with you?
Working with those students, and 5 of the girls that were up here were all Hoover kids, were young kids. That's what makes my job personal.
I love it. Big smiles. Wait, Miss Debbie, do you want to hold? Can I hold your envelope? Yeah. And I'd like to add that our partner in employee recognition, as you know, is our Community Education Foundation. And I'd like to thank Mr. LaFurla as Executive Director and the Board of Directors. And the foundation does have a check to present to you tonight in the amount of $500.
I'm just joined tonight by Stacy Pettit from Facilities and Maintenance, as well as Jared Olson from HGM to answer any questions you might have tonight. But if you recall, several meetings ago, we brought you some exciting plans that we had been developing with regard to our career, really building out more of a emphasis on career and technical education and starting that with our Trades Academy. So I want to bring to you tonight some of the work that we've done since that time with our partners at HGM. You have in front of you at your placemats a revised set of a proposal from HGM. It is identical to the one that was in your board packet, but we asked HGM to break it into two pieces. And we'll talk a little bit about why we did that here in the phasing later on this evening. So first of all, I want to take this in two sessions. I want to talk about Abraham Lincoln and then talk about Thomas Jefferson. And then Jared will kind of walk you through how we plan to get to open the doors in the academy in the fall of 2019. So the first rendering you see here tonight is a rendering of what the Abraham Lincoln, really the Trades Academy will look like. And if you remember, I mentioned to you on previous meetings that it would house 5 basic career pathways that would allow students to gain entry-level skills at their freshman and sophomore years in order to get them excited about one or more of the specific trade areas, and then provide them a clear articulated pathway into additional coursework, certifications, diplomas, or degree programs at Iowa Western in their junior and senior years. So Abraham Lincoln needs a few refreshers, a little facelift to be able to get us to be able to offer these programs. And what I'm showing you up here is the existing footprint of the Abraham Lincoln High School Industrial Arts shop. And this area is about just a little over 3,000 square feet. It's about half the size of the shop at Thomas Jefferson. So we knew that we had some work to do. And our goal is to be able to utilize the existing footprint of the space at Abraham Lincoln, as well as the classroom that is adjacent to it, to be able to expand that area into a more comprehensive Trades Academy lab. I'll let Jared talk about how we will get from this summer all the way up till 2019.
Well, again, so we're starting at Abraham Lincoln. This is where the majority of the actual physical construction and structural changes that will be happening. As Corey discussed, this is the general space that we have. What you see here is actually where we intend to be by the end of this summer, leading into the coming school year. Right now, the footprint will stay generally the same. However, we are going to address the second story mezzanine area where currently there is a decent amount of storage material for the current construction trades classes that are going on in there. Underneath that storage area is actually an office and 2 storage rooms. In order to expand the space to allow us to use the current area and the IT space located just to the left there, we're going to expand across that hallway. In order to do that, we need to maintain egress from the building for fire code reasons. So this summer, we're going to remove the storage above the offices, and we're actually going to knock down individual walls in between those rooms, and we're going to put up basically a construction barrier so that as we move into the next phase, which I'll be showing shortly, we actually are separated from the students and the construction can happen during the school year without disrupting the use of the current construction space in there. This summer, we're also going to relocate an office into the upper left corner there. That is actually the permanent location for the office, as you'll see in the master plan, and it'll set up the sight lines that will be necessary to have all 5 different trades in here. Next to that will be the actual permanent installation of the virtual welding machines. This is going to be an upgraded version of what's currently at TJ. We're going to be doing the similar work at TJ. It's actually going to simulate a real welding station like you would be if you're doing this for a profession. So it'll have the walls, the hoods, the larger monitors, etc. to really give them the true feel of what they can do with the virtual welding. That will then lead us right into the school year construction. The actual timing on this will depend a little bit upon curriculum development and also a little bit of the structural analysis of what we're dealing with here. However, the biggest change you can see, you should be able to see between the 2 areas there, is we are going to be adding in the automotive prep area here. This is right outside of an existing glass wall. We're gonna leave the window wall in place so that students can actually see the construction as it's happening. And ultimately, we're gonna build it into the design for the automated bay. This is about 4 feet above existing grade out there, to get up to finished floor elevation, and you can visualize that area. It's the part sitting up on the hill. So we're gonna have to put a ramp in there. We have the space with the existing parking lot in there. There will be a impact to the parking stalls, and we are working on finding a way to offset or possibly even increase the total parking as part of the overall approach. All without impacting the current egress throughout the coming school year and the truck traffic that accesses the back of the building there. You can see in here that we're constructing the new egress as well. This will still be separated from the students. And then IT, once they can get to their new location and relocate, will actually begin prepping the area for the future modules. There won't be a whole lot of work that goes in there, but we could be working on the ceiling and the flooring, etc. With the bulk of the final preparations happening this summer of 2019. This is when we'll actually be installing the actual modules for each of the 4 disciplines. The virtual welding would already be in use. We'll complete the demolition and construction necessary to connect the 2 different areas, the current IT space and the current construction space through there, and install the furniture and the mobile classrooms that are going to allow us to utilize, as Corey said, we have about 50% less square footage here. However, the space is situated as such that we should be able to actually make it very functional and a multi-purpose space as we're going through it, all while maintaining sight lines throughout the complex so that staff can actually be watching the modules as the students are working their way through the construction activities, which does require some level of supervision. And that is generally where we're at for Abraham Lincoln. General costs, the demolition package that we're going to tackle. Now these are just hard costs. There's going to be additional equipment costs, etc. that'll be factored in. But the hard cost is about $150 this summer, and about $950 to about a 1.1 between the 2 phases. These numbers might shift around a little bit as it makes sense to put in one package and out of the other as we develop the plan.
So here's the rendering for Thomas Jefferson High School. This is the current industrial arts space at TJ. And if you were standing back by where the robotics area is and you are looking into the shop, this is what you would be seeing. So currently, robotics occupies a competition area and a work and storage area. Neither of those areas will be touched in the renovation because we want to preserve the areas that they have as well. But much of the other existing space will be modified in order to allow us to have all 5 trades represented at Thomas Jefferson.
All right, now this space is a little more conducive to a retrofit without many structural changes. The biggest change to the existing walls will be happening this coming summer, where we knock down the existing pass-through office area that we have in red right in the center of the building there. And the brown relocated office space right here is currently a storage area. So we're going to actually remove those walls, put in glass walls, and build in the permanent office location and the pass-through so that the sight lines are established this coming summer. Also right below it, next to item number 4 there, is the installation of the enhanced virtual welding modules. We're going to try to get that done this summer as well. As far as the rest of it, it'll sit generally as it is right now. It's already a pretty nice space that's in there for the use that it'll be. And as the CTE curriculum's not going into place until 2019-2020 school year, we're just going to basically try to consolidate so that during the school year of 18-19, we can start doing a little bit of prep work. One of the items I didn't talk about at AL, but we're going to look to see if there's ways that we can actually have exposed ductwork up in the ceiling, or if we can actually highlight some of the cable bays that run through there, et cetera, because they're directly relevant to the trades that they're going to be learning in the classrooms. This space will allow us to start opening it up and working around it so that the students can see what's happening without necessarily being in the way of the construction or overlapping with the contractors at all, which as much as there might be some education there, it's not something we want to be doing. But this is not a whole lot will be happening there other than a little bit of prep work during the school year. And then finally, we'll come in and do the final install of the different modules. You can see the spaces are a little bit more spread out. The actual learning spaces are generally the same. There's just going to be a little bit more floor space available for flexibility in there as well. And then the costs are about a little less than half of what we're talking about at AL, spread out over the two bid packages there.
So the two bid packages that we are, or the two design options that we'll ask you to approve later tonight. The first one is just for the actual construction and demolition, and asking HCM to go out and do the documents and handle the design for that. The other one is just design schematics for all of the installation of the equipment and modules. And so we want to have the flexibility to be able to work with local contractors and local business and industry to identify what those are. So we may or may not need that going forward, but we want to have it available to us to make sure we have the right electrical, we have the right plumbing, we have the right utilities available when we do actually get ready to put those modules in place. So, with that, I would welcome any questions that you might have about this project.
Any questions?
I have one. You have in here work with staff. We have some instructors already that will be moving.
Do. Yeah. In fact, Mr. Grove, I would say we had a pretty exciting meeting last week. Mrs. Bellows was there, Mr. Barnett, both of our existing, Mr. McGruin and Mr. Fee instructors were there, Mrs. Goodman was there. And we went through all of the plans together, took feedback from them, and I wish you could see how excited both of them were to know that we are continuing to invest in career and technical education. Jared was there as well. They were over the top excited about what the possibilities are for this, for their students and for their programs.
Because if I remember right, we're going to have to add some staff to pull this off.
Yeah, our long-term vision for this academy is to have 2 additional staff members pending available funding so that we can flex the day to provide opportunities after hours for students to learn and give opportunities for us to have more than 30 kids in the shop at a time with 2 instructors for supervision.
Thank you.
Question? Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I move on to our resolutions. The first resolution is a first reading of policies. Is there an approval? Yeah, everyone's refreshing. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the first reading of the following policies: 222 public hearings, 407 use of electronic surveillance and security equipment, 420 resignation of licensed personnel, 424 Family and Medical Leave Act, 426 paraeducators.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Any discussion on these policies?
Yes. Give me 1 second to figure out where I'm at. Just one of the things that I had noticed in the policies was there was nothing for, like, siblings or, what?
Dean, can we pull this down so we can look at the policy piece?
The vote?
We can't look at the policies while the vote's up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Like, where is it? Oh, yeah. So if you look on page 5 in the actual PDF, it's like 1 of 2 for FMLA, and it just leaves of absence. It just seemed weird to me that like siblings and the phrase in-law, so like a son-in-law, daughter-in-law wasn't included in that at all. I don't know if that's district policy, national, state, but just
Yeah, I would
that
assume this
question.
matches FMLA,
FMLA,
national.
federal.
national and federal law. Yeah, Toby?
So are you asking what FMLA covers or what our leave policy covers? Just so I understand, so I can answer your question appropriately.
I guess we could do both. I feel like both would probably apply. That was just the one thing that I had noticed
Sure.
in
So
this.
for FMLA, it depends what your status is in relation to the person. So it could be a sibling or sibling-in-law. If you're the person responsible as a caregiver, you can apply, and there's guidelines that the federal law, and we follow that and adhere to that. So it just depends on your relationship and what you're, so it could be, just like we don't list in FMLA a foster child, but that could be someone else who you could be the caregiver for that you could get appropriate FMLA leave for. Does that fully answer your question?
Yes, okay. So you just have to be able to get the approval, even if it's not mentioned, those things would still potentially be covered?
Are you talking specific to the leave of absence policy then? Or just towards FMLA? I want to make sure I fully understand.
I guess it's under leaves of absence under the FMLA Medical Leave Act, so it
So
says
we
up to
just follow,
12.
and that's language that is pretty standard from the federal act, and so we just follow that. But yes, it would be just based on your relationship and then how you fill out the paperwork. So really, if you have that relationship and what it is, then that leave will apply for you. And so this policy just mirrors the federal law.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, Dean, please call the roll.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes, and the first reading of policies is approved. Now we have approval of a second reading of policies. 508, authorize interviews of students by non-school employees. 904, tobacco-free, nicotine-free environment. 908, public gifts to schools. 913, expected conduct of school-related activities. And 914, public content on school premises. Is there a motion?
I move approval of our board policies that are up for second reading.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on these? Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
And Mr. Arthur?
Yes, and the second reading of these policies is approved. Now we have approval of class of 2018 tentative list of graduates, which you all have also at your little station here. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the class of 2018 tentative list of graduates.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Tradition is it's always subject to final results.
That's a good point. Yeah, tentative list of graduates, yeah. Hopefully, these are all our graduates.
520.
520. All right, Mr. Wilson?
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes. And the graduate list is approved. Now we have approval of student teaching agreements for 2018-2019 with a number of different universities as listed in the packet. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the student teaching agreements for 2018-2019 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Furla. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Minchell. Is there any questions or discussion on these agreements?
I guess, is this
Yeah.
any more schools than we've had in the past? Is it just standard? Okay, this is my
Yeah,
first.
kind of understanding ones.
It's our same list.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Questions? Okay. Mr. Wilson?
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur.
Yes, and the student teaching agreements are approved. Now we have approval of our 2017-2018 budget amendment. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the 2017-18 budget amendment as presented during the public hearing portion of this meeting.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any burning questions that were not asked before on this? Okay. Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Dr. Ogres,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur.
Yes. And the budget amendment is approved. Now we have approval of bid 18-012 with CDW-G for annual technology purchase. Is there a motion?
Move to approve CDWG bid 18-012 in the amount of $790,075 for the district's annual technology hardware purchase.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, sir. Any discussion on this? So this is our 2,300 Chromebooks. There are 200 different type. Okay. No questions? We are a board of approvals today. Sir, please call the roll.
Dr. Ogres,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur.
Yes, and the bid is approved. Now we have approval of contract with Securely for web content filtering services. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the 3-year agreement with Securely for web content filtering services as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this?
I guess my question would be, does it, okay, I'll wait for you. Does this actually filter just when they're at the school? Does it do the same at home if they're on a different internet server? What?
It's a great question. We've been using this product for 2 years, and it does filter our Chromebooks both on and off campus. It has incredible reporting that allows us to get reports for building folks very, very quickly if they were wanting to investigate the activity of a particular student. And there's a parent component that allows the parents to see what's going on. And I don't know if any of the board members with kids in schools have taken advantage of that yet, but it's very powerful in seeing both the web content and then all of the searches that they've done. We think the product is very powerful. It's a 3-year agreement, which essentially allows us to pay for 3 and get a year free, if you looked at the discount over those 3 years.
Very good. Is 10,000 licenses enough? Just curious.
It is. We have 9,300 students, and then we have miscellaneous devices off campus, programs like Heartland Family Services School, Mercy Partial Care Classroom, Children's Square. So that 10,000, and this is for student filtering specifically. This is not what we use for our staff.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Any other questions? Mr. Wilson?
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Dr. Ogres,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur.
Yes, and the contract with Securely is approved. Now we have approval of plans, and specifications for the Abraham Lincoln High School parking lot renovation presented earlier. Is there a motion?
We have to
I'm
refresh again.
frozen.
And we're frozen. This is an awesome service when it works.
Mr. Fringer,
No,
we're frozen again.
It doesn't
And our
normally.
web-
do that.
Refresh and
And
reload.
it kicks
and-
you back out, and you have to go back in.
What is Dave doing over there with this?
Sure.
Cast my vote again.
Voted twice, huh?
I guess. Okay.
I move that we approve the plant specifications and form of contract for the Abraham Lincoln parking lot as presented during the public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Minshaw. Any discussion or questions on the proposed renovation? Nope. Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Dr. Ogres,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
and Mr. Arthur.
Yes. And the high school parking lot renovation is approved and long needed. Now we have approval of our new job description for the HR generalist position. Is there a motion?
I would move that the following new job description be approved as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this new job description?
So is this just a change in the job description for the employees after the reorg still? Another,
And I think, Toby, you'll come up and speak to it. It is, it's not an additional position, it's redesigning a position.
It's a repurposing of a position to better fit the needs of the reorganizational structure.
Any other discussions? Questions? Mr. Wilson?
Mr. McGlade,
yes.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Dr. Ogres,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
Mr. Arthur.
Yes. And the new job description is approved. Now we have approval of design services for the Trades Academy. And with the specific language in the packet, is there a motion?
Move approval of the
this
contract with
language?
HGM for design services for the Council Bluffs Schools Trades Academy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Nice.
Second.
It's an exciting thing. Is there any discussion? This initial part looks to be then about $179,700. And nope, $180,000. All right. No discussion, no questions. Mr. Wilson?
Dr. Ogres,
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw,
Yes.
Mr. McGlade,
Yes.
Mr. Kazire,
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla,
Yes.
Mr. Grove,
Yes.
and Mr. Arthur.
Yes, and the Trades Academy can now start getting going. Now we have approval of the amended CWA contract. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the amended CWA contract, adding a seniority provision for vacation scheduling.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you want to talk about this one, what it is, or?
After we reached an agreement, I met with our union president, Missy, who, in our discussion, we had some good conversation about the process and how we could work together and moving forward. One thing that she did ask is, would we include or could we amend to include the seniority piece? And I said, most certainly. So we are asking for the board to approve for a second time that contract by allowing us to add in the additional language that they would like to see in their contract.
Any discussion or questions?
So hopefully all the people that spoke to us about this kind of stuff will hear this.
That was, yeah, CWA.
Hopefully.
Yes, I know that in our conversation, and I now meet monthly with our union president of CWA, and have also invited her to our superintendent's roundtable in this past meeting, her and our president of the SEIU. She has, in good faith, stated that she was going to work courageously to mend those fences and to ensure that they know of the working relationship that we have.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, the contract is already passed. We're just voting tonight on this
Amendment to it.
amendment to the contract.
And it passed without any opposition, correct? Yes, so their members passed them.
I think so.
I think so.
Yes. All right.
No problem adding more. No.
No, I think it's a nice add and something that we had talked about having anyway, so.
Yeah.
Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes, and the amended CWA contract is approved. And now we have an approval of amended SEIU contract. Is there a motion?
I move that we amend the SEIU contract, adding a second year to the contract and providing a 1.2% base wage increase for the 2019-2020 school year.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this?
And this was basically to align the contracts between all bargaining groups then, so, or at least so there would be consistency between all the bargaining groups
Yes.
that we've bargained with this year. So,
That is correct. SEIU completed the process early, had agreed to a 1%, a one-year agreement, and we wanted to extend the offer for 2 years in good faith of the agreement that we had worked with them. And they appreciated that. They saw that CWA got 2 years, so we reached out to see if that was something they would be interested in, just in good faith, and to be equitable. I think one thing that we're working towards as a district is treating all employees and employee groups fairly and equitably, using some common language and bringing them together. And so that is what we reached out for.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? All right, Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Kazire?
yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes, and the amended SEIU contract is approved. Now we have approval of the naming of the Abraham Lincoln High School running trail. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the request to name the running trail on the Abraham Lincoln High School property at the Freeman-Lacatus Running Trail after longtime AL cross-country coaches Mike Freeman and Ron Lacatus.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on this?
Mr. Lacatus still coaches voluntarily.
It said that some of these former graduates had done some work on the trail. Do you know what kind of work they've been doing, or?
I know that Ms. Ostrowski has been working with AL and Jeff and the family and the members that are here.
Yes, and we do have some guests here tonight interested in the outcome of your, the resolution. And they described that they did some clearing of the trail and cleaning it up, because I don't think it's been utilized very much regularly. I can tell you, when I was in high school, I didn't even really know it was there. Not a cross-country runner, but we know their passion as a group of alumni and fans of our coaches, and in the interest of allowing this trail to be really a useful trail on our high school property.
Well, and it's safe.
Was there additional besides the clearing and the, yeah?
We also did a lot of dirt work to smooth it out. We drug it. It's very soft. It's a two-person path now.
Okay.
And it also helps keep the students off the streets. They can do a
Right.
little training on the
Safety.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing all that. This is
There,
this is a neat idea.
Okay.
Susan, would you like to introduce your,
Yes.
Dr. Ogres asked if you would introduce the group here tonight. Come on up.
Yep. 'Cause everybody at home that's watching nationally wants to hear your
That's right.
story.
Yeah, all the national people.
I told her, no, you won't have to say anything.
My name is Sue Freeman Wheeler, and this is Brian Schulenberg and Matt Lee. And they've been doing all the work. I just help with the promotions.
And your dad was a coach?
Yes, my dad is Mick Freeman, yes.
How many years did he coach?
48.
Wowzers.
48.
That's awesome.
Thank you for letting him
Are
do
you
that.
guys doing a formal naming
Dedication
or
ceremony?
fundraising to
The
do something, or did you already? No.
We're doing it Saturday, so
Saturday, okay.
we're hoping that this
Very good.
passes so that we
Yeah.
can still do that.
You bet.
We do have a sign, but it is not up yet.
Okay.
Right.
Put it up tomorrow.
Okay.
What
Very
time
good.
is your ceremony on Saturday?
10 a.m.
Okay.
All right, any questions from the board?
Good work.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
Mr. Arthur?
Yes, and the approval of the newly renamed Freeman Lakotas? Lacatus, that's right, Lacatus Running Trail is approved. Now we have approval of Thomas Jefferson High School construction and security enhancements. Is there a motion?
We're frozen again.
Oh, is yours for, mine's,
It re-
I guess I have to make the, I move to award McGinnis Construction with a bid of $118,300 and Clearski LLC in the amount of $42,707.20 for construction and security enhancement respectively at Thomas Jefferson High School.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on this.
So I guess just to clarify, this is just going to be to do the separate entrance for visitors and
That is correct.
just to bring it back up.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, come on up, Stacy. Thank you. This is at TJ, and this is our attempt to secure the two-door entries and to create that vestibule. It will entail some construction inside. Stacy, if you want to
Yes,
tell us.
we're going to address both sides. We're going to look at TJAC and TJ proper. So we're looking at doing the security vestibule on the main building where we're actually forcing folks into the office area. They're going to have to sign in, buzz them out, kind of security through there. We're also looking at securing the doors over on the TJAC side where we have our staff member that sits on the other side at an actual desk over there and can monitor the folks that are coming in and out. So they'll be buzzed in and buzzed out after hours in between passing periods.
So what does morning arrival look like and school pass? What does the class passing look like?
I think that's going to be something that we're going to have to test different ways of doing that. I think we're going to have to set up some bells system with our open and closing of the period. We're going to have to, we're still going to have staff out in the hallways to take a look at who's coming and going. It's not, everything's not, it's going to have eyes on the area, but we're going to try to get all the bells hooked up with our electronic lock system. So during passing period, we're opening and closing the doors for that big traffic going between the two buildings. And then after that bell rings, doors go into lockdown. You're going to have to buzz in, buzz out to come in. We'll have an air phone outside on both buildings. So if we have a visitor or someone coming up to the site, they're going to have to buzz in like they do at our elementary schools. And the secretary will have to, visually see who that is. We still have an SRO located in that front office area as well, so they'll be able to monitor people coming and going.
Okay. Does this,
But this is kind of our test of the new electronic locks, lockdown system, hooking it up with the bells. We're hoping once we get the bugs worked out of this that we can start moving on to some of our other locations.
how does this work then with the rest of the doors in the facility?
We're looking at doing lockdowns on the other ones with electronic locks. So we're testing several different systems out at the building.
And then do students filter right into the existing office structure?
Yes. Yeah, it's basically like our security vestibules that we have at our elementary schools right now. You come into a vestibule, you're forced into the office unless it's passing period. And then at that point, you have to do all your sign-in, and then you're allowed to go back out into the building once you sign in. So it's basically slowing people down as they're coming into the building and checking out who's actually there.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
And Mr. Arthur.
Yes. And the long, hopefully needed security enhancements to Thomas Jefferson will make people happy, and they're approved. Now we have the repair of our outside stairs at Hoover Elementary. Is there a motion?
Move to approve Lon Smith and Company Incorporated to repair of outside stairs at Hoover Elementary in the amount of $64,800.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this project?
So that's coming to us because it's over a certain amount that we have to approve?
Yes.
What is that amount, the bottom line? 50 grand?
50.
Well, 25,000, the superintendent can
Bid
approve
was for
anything
50.
under 25,000, anything over that you have to approve.
Just trying to refresh our policy, yeah.
The bid was originally going to be, or we thought 50 estimate.
Yeah.
That's what it's saying, and
Is that the front steps?
even higher.
When were those steps built?
Hi, Stacy.
That wasn't part of the remodel then,
Jared.
huh?
I would think it would have been.
You'd think so.
So it's been about 10 years now?
Yeah.
Kind of having the same issue over at Hoover that we're having over at AL. They were built about the same time. Unfortunately, the design over at Hoover, they have these metal strips for whatever reason, they designed them with that. And unfortunately, salt is getting underneath them and just really corroding the edges of the stairs away. So we've kind of been trying to hold off on this project, but they're to the point where we can't even repair them anymore. So we've done all that we can over the years, and we're looking at completely replacing the front entrance stairs, which is that kind of double large stair going up to the main entrance, as well as the north stair on the end of the building.
Right.
There's another set
Parking
that
lot.
our nutrition folks and stuff use for deliveries, and we just need to take care of both of them for safety reasons.
Think of how many little people feet go up and down
Oh,
those
yeah.
stairs.
Yeah,
Grinding in
A
that
lot of
stuff.
stairs at Hoover, a lot of stairs and ramps, so.
Was there any sort of just a differentiation in the type of chemicals applied or something over time that's changes, or just
Like
poor?
improved technology?
Yeah,
or-
poor building
Yeah,
techniques before, or
There's
what?
actually 3 sets of stairs right through there.
Mhm.
The one further south was the one we did about a year or two before the 2 were replacing. The 2 that got done were a different contractor, different designer, and I think it's the tread that caused the issue. Stairs are not something you can go poking around in without causing problems from an accessibility perspective. We've been piecemealing it together. The third staircase is actually in great shape still, the one that's actually older. It did not have the treads, it was a slightly different design. I'm using the same design for these 2 replacements that was used on the southern one. We're gonna reuse as much of the existing structure as we can, we'll just replace the actual treads.
The one that's still good is the one you did?
Yeah.
Look at his smile. He should be.
Any other discussion?
Thanks for picking up on that.
I've
Yeah.
given you enough hassle.
Okay, if there's no other questions, thank you both again.
Stay close.
And Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Dr. Ogres?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw?
Yes.
Mr. McGlade?
Yes.
I open up the line of voting. Mr. LaFurla?
Yes.
Mr. Grove?
Yes.
And Mr. Arthur?
Yes. Guessing that was a voice vote?
I just opened it up.
Nandeska.
Now it's closed.
Must be something.
Got to refresh like every 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's.
These are just messing with the technology tonight.
Over there.
Shutting us
I'm like, yeah. Zip, zip.
I wish. I lost all my voting information. We got to listen to the videotape tomorrow.
Nice.
You don't have anything else to do tomorrow?
Okay.
Sorry.
And so I'm guessing that's approved.
Yes.
Now we have award a bid for the Abraham Lincoln High School Student Parking Lot Phase 1. Is there a motion?
Because I'm kicked out.
I would move to approve it as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We had a nice little presentation, and one nicer one 2 weeks ago. So, Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Mr. Grove.
Yes.
Mr. Kazire.
Yes.
Dr. Ogres.
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw.
Yes.
Mr. McGlade.
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla.
Yes.
Mr. Arthur.
Yes, and the parking lot award is approved. Now we come to our consent agenda, and the end of all this voting. And within this, we have a membership for the UEN, the IASB, ISFAS, agreements with Council Schools in Green Hills, memorandum of understanding with the Council Community School District and the Council Community Education Foundation, special education contracts, personnel, purchasing, claims and accounts, and April financial results. Is there a motion?
I move to approve our consent agenda with addition of checks ACH payments for April to May of 2018.
I missed that? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
And any discussion? All right. Mr. Wilson, please call the roll.
Dr. Ogres.
Yes.
Mr. Kazire.
Yes.
Mr. Minshaw.
Yes.
Mr. McGlade.
Yes.
Mr. LaFurla.
Abstain.
Mr. Grove.
Yes.
And Mr. Arthur.
Yes. Consent agenda is approved. And we are adjourned.